for the newest entrant into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. Our newest entrant into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, you might say, is greatness personified, as his accolades don't lie, as currently he is our only global champion. That's right. Of all our prior and current inductees, which he's about to join our class, he's the only one that's a global champion, as he's the reigning, defending, dominant breakout wrestling global championship after he racked up another successful defense against last week's guest in this chair, Mr. V to the H Van Hansen. While we'll certainly get to that, it's time now to obviously talk about why our latest inductee into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame has earned his way in. When we think about the entire history of dominant breakout wrestling, which stretches for the better part of a decade, our newest entrant into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame is on our Mount Rushmore, with the likes of, some may say, a Judgment, a Scorpion the Assassin, anybody else you want to put up there. Our newest entrant into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame is certainly right there, shoulder to shoulder, side by side. And you might want to say that he's come into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame with his best year to date of his long-standing career. And he has just written another successful chapter, a chapter 2, you might want to say, and there'll be many, 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 many chapters ahead that he'll talk about here tonight. But certainly before then, we will certainly give him his place into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. When I think about the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame and what it has meant to so many people, along with the definition of a Hall of Fame, our latest entrant into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame is exactly that kind of person who, over a long period of time, has year after year won championships, been in main events, and has represented his company as the it factor that he is. And as I've stated here in our ceremony to induct him, greatness personified. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for our newest entrant into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And we have to give him a big shout out because also he specifically shouted out our platform on a recent episode of Thursday Night Thunder Punch. No, my friends, that is not why he's only in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame due to that. It's because he is the reigning, defending DBW Global Champion, defending that successfully time and time again, and he has held numerous championships throughout his career. I could go on and on about our newest inductee into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, but I think it's now time to officially congratulate, as our 26th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, one of our first reigning and defending champions to date, the DBW Global Champion, the It Factor Cyrus. Cyrus, before we congratulate you formally and let you speak on this historic moment, it's time, like everybody else that's been inducted, to give you that ceremonial speech and also that favorite part that everybody loves here, time and time again on Sportswire Radio, and especially many of your colleagues who've tried to take your championship away from you and have failed. So now, without further ado, so with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, number one, Sports Show, the man who sits on the Mount Rushmore of dominant breakout wrestling, and our reigning, defending, global champion, who has just successfully written another chapter into his career. And now he writes the chapter of being in our third class of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, and our 26th member. His name is the It Factor The champ is here. And congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. It's truly an honor to be inducted in such a prestigious Hall of Fame that you have. Um, I've, seen many greats, enter your Hall of Fame thus far, but none as great as yours truly. So your Hall of Fame just got much, much greater.
I did say, by the way, to my credit here, because I think, by the way, Cyrus, I don't want to toot my horn too much, because actually somebody asked me on the air, well, do you want to induct yourself in the Hall of Fame? And certainly I'm not going to do that. That's for sure. I don't want to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't deserve to be in one. But what I will say is I feel like this is my best one yet. And I've done now over 20 of them. I feel like we had like all the words in. I didn't stutter. I didn't miss a word. I think I said like huh and like twice. But that's it. So I really felt like this was the one I worked upon the best. And I was kind of getting some inspiration because thinking of you, Cyrus, earlier today, I saw the movie The Beekeeper with Jason Statham. I was like, you know what? Cyrus is going to be our beekeeper in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. He's certainly going to be our global champion. Yes, you're absolutely right, though, champ. Greatness has now been officially personified into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. The accolades don't lie. What you've done in DBW, there is no question. Technically, you're only the first ever global champion in our Hall of Fame, and you're one of the few current reigning and defending champions actually in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, we have a couple of them. Bentley would be one, R.P. Davis on the singles, and Justin Parsley would be another one, but very few, and also Jam Dog, who's going in, but technically not in. So there's very few current wrestlers that are in the Hall of Fame that's an actual current champion today. So you are definitely in rarefied air. But I guess I have to ask you the question, which we always do kind of to start this thing. For those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, especially fans of yours, the It Factor Cyrus, and by the way, thank you again. I want to say, I will not say enough. I have said it throughout these past couple of weeks. Thank you for actually specifically mentioning our platform on WWTV. But I have to ask you now, what does it mean to you to be the 26th member in the Sportswire Radio's Hall of Fame?
It means a lot, honestly. It means not only am I being, recognized as one of the many greats, to come on, Sportswire Radio. I'm being acknowledged as one of the greats and one of the, Mount Rushmore people in DBW. And this is truly a monumental moment in my career, and I couldn't enjoy this moment with any other person rather than you. Yours truly.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you that I actually could join you because I'm actually inducting you into the Hall of Fame. Thank you, Cyrus. So we don't want to meet the same fate that Van Hansen is mad and Robert Pearson and Jackson Sabre. So I'm not that stupid. There's a lot of things I'm not intelligent for and pretty dumb on, but that's definitely a few of those things. You know what? You're absolutely right, though. Real quick, champ. It has really been a unique class. Somebody last one said, well, there's only 13 members in the Hall of Fame and most of them are backyard wrestlers. But actually, it's factually dishonest because in addition to you now being in the Hall of Fame, we just inducted Luke Leyland, the first ever British fighter to have fought in Dombey. We have Dean Allmark, only Dean Allmark, and they just celebrated his 24th anniversary in the wrestling world. He's only defeated a couple of guys named Jushin Thunder Liger, Brian Danielson, not bad company. We have a guy coming into the Hall of Fame next Monday night in your chair, Dan Burns, who's actually the last team, I believe, or one of the second to last teams in the entire city of New York to have played in the National Championship, National Collegiate Athletic Association's Final Four, and the only team ever from the quote-unquote City of University of New York Athletic Conference to have played in the Final Four. He's in our Hall of Fame. So what we've done here on Sportswire Radio have some great inductees. Also, James Barris, want to give him a big shout out, our first owner and promoter. He is also the owner of Colory Championship Wrestling. They're coming off a huge show. So we've got some really, really great members in the Hall of Fame. Also, I want to shout out Ernest Dove, who covers the New York Mets and covered a number of different guys who cover. So it's a really, really unique class, and I'm proud that you're right in the middle, in the spank middle of that third class. And also, we induct you right before the Bitcoin billionaire Chase Wakefield tomorrow, who's quote-unquote Aaron Jones' best friend. So this is a good moment for you, Cyrus, because it's another accomplishment you can have over Chase Wakefield, that you got into the Hall of Fame before him, and you took the global championship away from him when he had that chance as well a few months ago. So it's a good night to be Cyrus, I think.
Oh, it absolutely is. And, again, I'm one up on Chase Wakefield. Unfortunately,
and you don't need to pretend to be Aaron Jones' friend, because I was watching. Shout out to, I know obviously we'll get to Aaron later. He's our new Hub City champion. But certainly, if I was watching VTW TV, which I'll talk a lot about when Chase is here, not so much when you're here. But even then, Aaron was still looking at Chase Wakefield like, what is this guy doing here?
Yeah, and I think Aaron has an agenda as to why Chase thinks, they're best friends. I mean, personally, Aaron doesn't really need Chase Wakefield, but I think it's more the
No, not at all.
I
Not at
think it's
all.
the opposite that, Chase needs Aaron, and I think that's why Chase is hanging on for dear
He's
life.
hanging on. He's almost
Yeah.
like one of those like hanger-ons, one of those lackeys,
Yes,
hanger-ons. And I'll
exactly.
get to him tomorrow. We'll definitely do that here. I want to say hello to some people before I ask you a couple of moments on the ceremony before we get to current business. But there's a lot of
Yes.
people that have been kind of chopping at the bit against you that have come on Sportswire over the past
Yeah.
month. Certainly, you mentioned Jackson Saber, Van Hansen. Big Tex is here. He said a lot about you, although he had his own issues when it came to Mr. Judgment. The Judgment Slam heard around the world. We'll definitely get into all of that here, but let me say hello to some people.
Absolutely.
I want to say hello to my buddy Ethan Sorensen. Yes, congratulations to him as well. And how are you guys doing? We're doing great, obviously. My
Absolutely
voice
great.
is good. I had a good day in terms of preparing my voice for this. I feel like this was the best one I've done. Again, over 20 of these speeches, and I felt like this was the best one. I was like prepared. I was thinking about it. I was like, I had quotes in my head all day. I did DVGs yesterday. It was okay. He said, "Oh my God, it was great." I listened back to it and I was like, "Eh." This one, though, I feel like really was like the best one. It was right up there for me with RPD's, my first one. He's really the reason I'm here. So that's great stuff.
Yes.
But thank you for that. I think you may or may not know who this person is. How you doing? Thank you for you tuning in. And there's certainly, I'm sure Cyrus is happy that you're tuned in. I can promise you this is not Jackson Saber. So for those that are listening and watching,
That
that was funny. This is not Jackson. I want to say hello to Craven Rage. Craven Rage, who was out
Thank
there
you,
in the
Craven.
main events for the IMF show a couple weeks ago. How you doing there, Mr. Craven Rage? Also, congratulations to the DBW champion Cyrus on the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. Just remind yourself it's with a Z, not an S, but thank you anyway. You absolutely deserve it. Yes, he absolutely has. And I want people, by the way, here's a reason why Cyrus is in the Hall of Fame. Go to the YouTube page, especially for Dominant Breakout Wrestling, Dominating Breakout Wrestling at. But go there where you can see Cyrus throughout the years and what this man has accomplished. And as I said it in my speech to induct him, he is right up there in the Mount Rushmore,
Yeah.
obviously with Judgment. You could throw Scorpion the Assassin in there. You could debate on who else would be in there. But this man is stood shoulder to shoulder with those people. He's been champion. He's had different roles throughout his career. And that's why he's here. And again, I said this in inducting you, which I really meant, because we've had certain people get in and they're in the Hall of Fame really for a moment or two. But your career, your body of work, not just in DBW, but throughout the 20 years you've been in this sport, this great squared circle that we all love and certainly promote here on Sports by Radio, you have been pretty much your entire career a Hall of Famer. You know, the definition of a Hall of Famer is somebody that has had dominance personified or greatness personified, as you might say. And I say that, we've had, again, different people and they're in for a moment. They're in for, let's say, different accomplishments. But I think with you, I look back on your career, I feel like you've been dominant. And especially in this year, you've really reinvented yourself to look at where you were at the start of last year to where
Yes.
you are now. And I agree with you. I think we've got chapters. We've got loads of chapters. I feel like we're going to have a book of like 24 chapters with you, and I'm going to be carrying the book like the fourth time I induct you in the Hall of Fame, like 5 years from now. And that book is going to be so heavy, it's going to be heavier than my law book in college, which I basically looked at like once, and that's why I'm here, not a lawyer.
Yeah, there's many chapters to be written, and we're just getting started, like I mentioned.
Do you feel like, though, that throughout your career that you've been like personifying that every year you've been right there? Because I kind of think that really rings true as to why I inducted you tonight.
I wouldn't necessarily say been right there. I know I've been right there. It's just a matter of what needed to be done to get over that little hump, so to say. Because I was already a bona fide Hall of Famer to begin with. With like you mentioned, with my accolades throughout my career. So I just needed that little extra nudge, so to say, to get me to where I am today.
But I feel like in the second half of the season in DBW that you did jumpstart your career in a different way because, obviously to some people this was unexpected, but as you've explained on DBW TV, and again, I will stress this, and by the way, I am wearing my DBW shirt because I wanted to make sure, because I know DBG, which kind of dropped the bomb that he was no longer going to be a part of DBW, but I wanted to make sure I kept this shirt on the entire day because I wanted to make sure that we have somebody from DBW actually I can formally wear this shirt for more on. So I was very happy about that. But I really do think that, in a way, when you look at veterans sometimes in this sport, there's always that trouble to kind of stay relevant, or that trouble that they're able to kind of stay ahead of the curve. But I think really, not only have you stayed ahead of the curve, I think that, like you said, you're going to have chapter after chapter after chapter, because I don't see anybody right now. And we'll get to some of these names, these suspects that have come on Sportswire Radio. I'll let you certainly, nail it out of the park on many of those names. But I feel like that there's nobody right now on this roster that's going to take this championship away from me. I say it to God's honest truth.
No, in order for them to become DBW Global Champion in any regard, they're going to have to literally reinvent themselves to what they're not used to in order to take me down. Because see, last year I was stuck in limbo. I'll give you a little tidbit. I was stuck in limbo. I was just floating around in the abyss, so to say, wondering what is next for yours truly. And then the light bulb, so to say, went off in my head, and I said, "That's it. I know what I have to do." And all these years, again, I'm going back to it, and as I mentioned it previously, the fans loved the It Factor Cyrus. They were behind him, and I'll give credit to the fans. The fans were behind me throughout my career, but I realized I don't need the fans to be great. And look what happened. I dropped the fans. I did what was good for myself.
What have we talked about on Sportswire the past couple of months? And specifically, this is a question that has come up throughout pretty much the 5 years I'm doing this, and especially the last 3+ that we've been covering wrestling on the platform, is that there are those that go about it like a Robert Pearson for the fans, a Van Hansen for the fans. And what are they left with? They're basically holding an empty bag with nothing in it, where it's guys like you, guys like Judgment, for example, that have gone about it where you guys know what's best. You guys know how to stay on top. You guys know what to do to be ahead of the curve. You guys know what's best to be able to stay on top and not only be on the Mount Rushmore of DBW, but certainly never get off, because the young bucks that have come in here who have kind of maybe don't understand what it takes are saying, yeah, the fans, it's the fans keep us. But the truth is, when it's the money, it's the championships. If you want to throw the women, in your case, you could do that as well. The facts are is that you know what to do to win, and that's why you're here, and that's also why you're in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, and again, like these, new people coming into DBW, the young up and coming people.
I like to call them new kids on the block, more or less.
Yeah. So to say, they want to take that next leap. They want to become a title holder. And again, they're only being held down by their own potential. If they get to the realization that they're being held back, then maybe they'll be in conversation about Mount Rushmore and everything else for that matter. But until then, they're just going to be at the bottom of the totem pole trying to claw their way up, and they're just going to fall right back down because I'm at the top, and I'm just going to give them a little push right back down.
Well, I love the word that you said, as we're here, ladies and gentlemen, with the 26th member of our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. He is the It Factor Cyrus. He's the reigning defending DBW Global Champion. You can follow him on Twitter, it_factor_Cyrus. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters here. We are starting another big week ahead on Sportswire Radio. Just when you thought I might take the day off, well, guess what? That's not happening, because we're actually literally, I'm actually booked on Sportswire, I think, like every day up until the end of February. And I promise you that it'll be even past that at this point. I think Jack Delta actually messaged me a couple weeks ago. I kid you not. He said, "You ever think about taking a break?" I was like, yeah, I would, but the people want Sportswire. They want us here. So there is no breaks until my voice falls. But we're doing better with that. So we're good with that. We'll certainly pace ourselves better. But let me get to some comments. A lot of people want to say hello to you. And also, we'll come back to Big Tex. He's got a lot to say on the Global Championship.
Of course he does.
I'll come back to that. But I had a good one, actually, from Craven Rage, of all people. And
okay.
What is the next chapter in terms of where higher or how much higher you can go when it comes to your career?
As far as my career, I plan to add multiple chapters in this book of Cyrus that I am writing going forward. whether it be up and comers coming into the company, whether I'm going to other companies to forge chapters in there as well. But at
Mm.
but at the end of the day, they're just going to be another chapter in the Book of Cyrus. And as far as going higher, you know, hell, this may be a platform to go up to the DBW World Championship in any regard, because it might get to the point where the Book of Cyrus has to come to an end, because who else would challenge for it? Who else could take the belt off of me? Hey, when I was World Extreme Champion, I had to drop the title because I didn't have contenders. I
I
ran out
know.
of
Yes,
contenders.
that was something that you spoke about here on I think the first time you came on when you were the World Extreme Champion, and
Yes.
you know.
My last contender was Corey Graves. He put up a hell of a fight. Don't get me wrong. Much respect to him. But again, I dropped the title because I had no one was coming forward to challenge me. Nobody. So this might be like the same result as when I was World Extreme Champion. I might have to, at a certain point, write my own end and then push forth to become possibly a 2-time DBW World Champion.
Well,
Because
you know what? I mean, and it's a very loaded question. I will get to comments here, and plus, I actually want to present you something. So certainly stay tuned for that. But when you think about it, and who's really out there for judgment, let's think about it, because obviously Big Tex came
think
out of
about it.
nowhere.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Who's Judgment's kryptonite?
It would be who's the man that knows him most on the roster. It would be yours truly. I mean, you're the man that knows him most. I mean, at the end of the day, Scorpion the Assassin couldn't get the job done. He was the last champion, and Judgment took him out. And we certainly have seen. You want to talk about limbo? I mean, he's been in limbo in DBW, and that was a great word, by the way. For whatever reason, there's actually a Rush song called Limbo. It's an instrumental song. And it's kind of almost like the band's playing in limbo. And I feel like a lot of the guys that have come on Sportswire, like you said, they're in limbo right now in DBW. Certainly, Scorpion the Assassin, if you're listening out there, you kind of are in limbo in DBW. You're no longer in limbo, but it's a fair point. Listen, I mean, all the guys that have challenged Judgment of late, Costelli couldn't beat him. You had Graves couldn't beat him. You had his son couldn't beat him. You obviously had Big Tex couldn't beat him, but you're the man that knows him better than anybody else over this past decade. So, listen, that's certainly something that, whatever certainly the cards may hold in 2024. I don't know what the cards might hold. I mean, I certainly don't know what's in the minds of Judgment. I can't certainly read your mind. And I think even the fans of the DBW universe cannot read minds, but they would certainly like to see anxiously what happens when the season resumes once again in 2024 in March. And I am sure we'll come back to that here. Let me get to some more comments. Also, a chair can't even take you down, Cyrus, so no one can take you down. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, we want Cyrus to do well. And I also want to point out, when guys have come on here and kind of shot their shot about you, I want to remind you that I was like, no, I'm a Cyrus guy because he plugged Sportswire. He was the one guy on the roster that plugged Sportswire. So from that point on, we gotta plug him. It doesn't matter. To hell with the fans or not, we gotta go with him because he brought up Sportswire and talked about being on Sportswire. Maybe we should call you the new Mr. Sportswire at this point. You know what? Maybe you should be Mr. Sportswire at this point. We have another guy. Maybe you'll be our U.S. version of Mr. Sportswire because our UK version is coming back Friday and a new name, Mr. Brad Coleman. But that's here nor there. Also, yes, congratulations, Cyrus. Thank you, Steve, for tuning in. Also, I want to say hello to our ROEW champion, the good guy, CJ Buck. Speaking of guys who are unbeatable, speaking of guys that, he's run through everybody else. He's run through Jack Delta. He's run through JX. And it looks like now he doesn't have any competition because of what we just saw on ROEW TV between Jack Delta and C Money. There was no winner. And he says, yeah, sounds like Mr. Judgment is damn near unbeatable. Maybe.
He does have a valid case in point, and he's right. At this moment in time, as I'm speaking live on Sportswire, Mr. Judgment is damn near unbeatable. You mentioned his many opponents, Tom, and like you said, who was able to take him down? Nobody.
The only person that I think maybe, and I think it's still way too early in the game with that, was Aaron Jones. That was the only one. We saw what happened at the end of Merry Mayhem where, we saw that, but I think it's still way too early in the game for that. And I think Aaron Jones, who was on Sportswire, by the way, a few weeks ago, I think is a very smart man. And some would even say that, even he would know that that's a cross, quote unquote, he couldn't bear. And he certainly would know the difference between heaven and hell. And he should certainly focus on his Hub City championship and maybe, just maybe, not cross that path with Mr. Judgment. Just saying. So obviously, Mr. Jones talked a few things, but I'll let those two gentlemen sort that self out. In the meantime, you're the global champion. CJ Black is the reigning ROEW champion, who's basically knocked down like a tree out in the woods somewhere, Jack Delta and JX. So certainly got to give him his flowers, got to give him his credit. And also he took down his former best friend, Jason Storm, who's no longer in ROEW, and basically, kicked him to the curb. But I'll come back to that later. Let me get to some more comments. Chase Wakefield, who's here tomorrow, is just giving you some flowers. We're going to give him his speech. I don't know if it'll be as good as the one I did, because I really feel like that this was I'll be honest, I've done over 20 of these. I feel like this was the best one I did. But we'll find out what Chase's tomorrow.
Yeah,
although I'm gonna try hard not to laugh in it, because he has me laughing so much in other promotions. But that's here nor there. Cyrus gave me one of the hardest hitting matches of last year, for sure, at least for me. I would agree with that. We spoke briefly about that match, and I'm sure
I thoroughly enjoyed taking on Chase Wakefield. He's a hell of a competitor. I'll give him
absolutely. I think that he's a guy, and I have gotten a chance to know him the past several months, and he's a guy that I truly see going many, many places, like many other people in the DBW roster. And I'm really excited for Chase to take his place alongside you in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. But I'll also remind him once again that you got there first. So it's another notch in your resume that you have over Chase Wakefield. You take that global championship, which away from an opportunity that he had, but also now you got one spot higher in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And I also want to say hello back to CJ Black. A small breeze hits you hard. It's a good one. That's actually a good one. That's a good line there. Where did you get that one from for? I think that's actually a really good line, but that's why you are definitely one of the best, and I can't take anything away from you on that. I'm going to hit you extra hard if I come to ROEW. Okay. I know people want to talk in the current, and I'm going to come back to it. But, as I promised, Cyrus, I actually have something for you here, especially for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire. I know you have no idea what it is, and you might be wondering, could it get any better for you? Obviously, we gave you this great speech, and I did my intro, and people loved it. We're giving you your flowers. We're praising you. But actually, I have something for you, and especially not only of fans of yours, but those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, and certainly DBW fans. And of course, we love the DBW verse. We have all the platforms there where you can follow DBW. And also, if you want to be like me, buy a shirt there at the Bonfire store of DBW, because I'm going to be really upset if you don't, because I love DBW. But I want to give you something. If it would be okay. I promise you're going to like it. I think you'll like it, So I got to give it to you, especially for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio. If it would be okay if I could present to you something on the air.
Yes, absolutely. By all means.
Well, it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We actually have something that shows that we're an official accredited Hall of Fame here on Sportswire Radio. You have my John Hancock. You have my name there put down right underneath. You have today's date. You also have your name and all the information there, plus our logo and what it is. And we've sent you the proclamation with this day here, you being inducted into our Hall of Fame. And it's official. Plus, after we're off the air, you'll have your picture on our website to put you in that third class of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. So there you have it. We like to do things a little different on Sportswire. We like to go the extra mile here.
That absolutely. And it's truly a great accomplishment to receive such an honor. And I couldn't be, any more pleased.
I'm glad, because, like I said, you're the man that is greatness personified. So I want to make sure that you're happy, because if you're not happy, I don't want to be on the side of the likes of Chase Wakefield and Van Hansen, Robert Pearson, Corey Graves, Jackson Sabre, as we can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. But we don't want to do that. But obviously, yes, congratulations. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. And if you're here with us, I'm going to be on the air twice. But before Chase Wakefield, my opening act, this is going to be a good one, ladies and gentlemen, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. The senior official from XCW. That's right, XCW, kind of our sister company to DBW in the Midwest, the gold standard of this sport alongside DBW. Festus Davis is going to be here to talk about what is to come at the Cold Day in Hell, which will be next Thursday. He's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about his journey. He's going to talk about all things related to XCW. He might even talk about somebody that's been a frequent commenter here in many of our Sportswire radio shows that is from XCW or quote unquote a fan of XCW. So that's certainly going to be a clue for you, but you'll definitely not want to miss that one, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on all Sportswire radio platforms. You can also check out again 9:30 p.m. in your chair tomorrow night, the Bitcoin billionaire Aaron Jones. I say this quote unquote best friend Chase Wakefield to be the 27th member of our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. At this point, I'm not going to count anymore. When I get to 30, I don't think I'm going to say, well, number 31, 32. We'll just say the fourth class and so on and so on. But I'm looking forward to Chase Wakefield being on here. I'm always excited to speak with different people and so many companies that do great things here in Sportswire Radio. That's why I always say all wrestling matters. And I want to thank everybody that's gotten us past the 500 subscribers. We're at well over 500 now. And I really want to thank everybody out there, but I really want to thank DBW for a second. I want to thank DBW for their support these last few months. It's been an absolute honor to cover the company here and talk about so many of the great talents that have been a part of this company, continue to be a part of this company, and whether it's the It Factor Cyrus, whether it's the Blaze, Ace Christian, Chase Wakefield, Brandon Costelli, Van Hansen, whether it's so many other great talents that are a part of DBW. Mr. Judgment as well, guys. Let's give him his flowers. Big Tex. Big Tex has been here a bunch of times. Obviously, Chaos Conspiracy and the Stompers. So many great talents. That's why I want people to really follow DBW because almost 4,000 people are subscribed on the YouTube channel of DBW. And I want people to join. So please make sure you support companies like DBW that go out there and do it for the fans. They do it for the love of the sport. And I want to thank everybody here. But I do have a comment here, apparently from another Hall of Famer. I guess in his own way, he's congratulating you. I have to put the comment up here because he's in the Hall of Fame. His name is Omen Black. You probably heard of Omen Black.
Yeah.
You heard of him?
I heard of him.
He compared you to Billy Ray Cyrus, though, but I don't think that you have an achy, breaky heart. Because
hey Omen, how about you come up with some originality? Everything you're going to say, I already heard. So come up with more originality when you come in with a remark towards yours truly.
Now, would it be fair to say that you've actually been the one in DBW that's been giving many of the recent people that have come on this show an achy, breaky heart because they have not been able to knock you off the spot that you hold currently with that global championship? Is that a fair statement I can make?
That is an absolutely 100% fair statement indeed.
Well, I'm glad I could do that. Well, certainly don't break out the achy, breaky heart tune. But if you're out there in DBW, I will certainly say that you might want to amplify that a little bit louder when you come out into the ring. But we'll forget about that. Jump in.
And you're the boogeyman of the Midwest. Be quite honest, there's nothing frightening about you, good sir. So just
are you sure about that, though? Now, I will say this. You know I love you, and I'm a big fan of yours. But I just watched him recently. And I've watched him in a couple of places. I just watched him in XCW against Justin Parsley and Rob Slater, their tag team champions. I just saw him on his own show a couple of weeks ago dismantle two guys in WCE, Kodak Kid, their world champion, and Nicholas Crenson. And he's a very impressive guy. In fact, one of our UK wrestlers, the Tribal Cheese, actually said to me on Facebook Messenger, no joke. He says, you know, Tom, this Omen Black guy, watch him on Sportswire. And then I was speaking to him on Facebook. And I was like, you didn't tell me he was that big. I was like, well, now you know. So you sure you want to say those things?
Listen, I'm not taking nothing away from Omen Black. Honestly, he when he's in that ring, he gets the job done from bell to bell. I'm not taking nothing away from him. But again, Boogeyman is not an accurate name for you. Maybe out in the Midwest, but out here on the East Coast, no.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? That's certainly something we'll obviously stay tuned to. And I have no doubt that Omen will be here in a couple of weeks because the IMF has a big show coming up, which I'm supporting on February the 17th. And I am endorsing the event. And as I endorse every event that we have here in this great sport because all wrestling matters. And I'm looking forward to endorsing that just as much as I'm endorsing DBW. And we look forward to all the IMF guys coming on here very shortly, and Nicholas Crenson taking his place in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame Thursday night, along with the resident rock star Sean Jovi, who's also in the foundation. But, I want to come back to DBW here because I want to talk about the current events. Now, I know, obviously, we spoke a lot about, it's a great day for you. You're in the Hall of Fame, and we're looking back. We're having fun. But, I do have to come back to the current event. As I alluded to here, Cyrus, and I know you've heard the footsteps, you've heard the chatter. We spoke about these new kids on the block, but let me
Yeah,
come back especially to a couple of people, one in particular, Big Tex, who calls himself the big man of the DBW. Now, he's got a number of different things he's specifically saying about you, and he said those things here on Sportswire Radio a couple of weeks ago, and I want to bring them up now because now it's a great time. Now we're going to go into business. Now we're going to go in the weeds now and kind of talk
let's
about
go.
the next chapter for you. So let's talk about Big Tex. Hello, Cyrus. Just keep that global title warm because I'm coming for your title. Then he goes on here. Get this, ladies and gentlemen. I might not have beaten Judgment. However, Judgment won't be the same after facing me. And Cyrus, if you face me, I'll take a piece of you because I'm the sheriff of Tex County. Now, what do you want? Country, I should say. Thank you. Certainly, my eyes do need to be checked. But obviously, we got the point here. Big Tex certainly was very respectful, had a strong showing against Judgment, but
Yes.
couldn't get the job done. Obviously, where you're here, he's not there yet, and he needs time to be able to get over that threshold. We thought maybe he could have his Goldberg moment in the Georgia Dome. He came up short. But he then goes to you and specifically targets you for no particular reason. And I'm wondering now that you have a chance here, that you're in your spot, you're in your home now on Sportswire. You're our U.S. version of Mr. Sportswire, the It Factor, Cyrus. I'm letting you respond right now first, right off the bat, to the big man of DBW, Big Tex.
Well, listen, Tex, or Big Tex, so to say. Let's get one thing straight. If you couldn't take down Mr. Judgment, what makes you think you could take down me? You had a big moment in the Battle Royal to determine the number one contender to face Mr. Judgment. And I'll give you credit where credit is due. You did eliminate me. But just that little bit of momentum isn't going to propel you to become a global champion. And I am glad that you have a whole entire fan base and Tex country behind you. I'm glad you have everything going behind you because you're going to need everything behind you to take down yours truly. Because if you can't take down, the prophet himself, again, what makes you think?
Prophet of Purgatory.
A fellow Brotherhood member, you're just going to need a hell of a lot to take down yours truly. So when you're well prepared, and I mean well prepared, not just I'm ready to fight the global champ now. No, when you're well prepared, Tex, when you get on your big boy cowboy boots, then you could come face me like a man. And then I'll put you down and you could be chapter 3. Hell, I'll make you chapter 3.5 for how big you are.
That's actually a good point because we've seen Big Tex flesh in the wound here on Sportswire a lot. He has been, but I want to ask you a question in a different way, and I'm going to tie Van Hansen into this. And I'm gonna hold off on Sabre, but I want to tie Van Hansen into this for a second and hear me out on this because Big Tex has not had much experience in the ring, right? We all know he's only really had, I don't know, in real time, 4 matches in the ring, something like that in some capacity between rumbles, tag matches, maybe 4 or 5 matches. Somebody can count and somebody can quote me and say, Tom, you're off by a match or 2. Fine. I got the point. But when a guy like Big Tex talks, he doesn't know better. Van Hansen knew better against you, and he made mistakes. He was a veteran. He's been a pro wrestler. He's been out there, and he kind of, on his own fruition, knew better. But in a way, Big Tex doesn't know better, and maybe that's where he could be worse off against you because Big Tex really, again, a handful of matches, doesn't know better, thinks he's got the palm in the world in the palm of his own hands now after what he did against Judgment, winning a Rumble, coming this close. He's feeling good about himself. He doesn't know failure. He doesn't know defeat. He doesn't know what it is to go up there against veterans like yourself who've been there and stayed on top and have been dominant, and have been Hall of Famer year after year after year. So in a way, maybe Big Tex might be the worst of anybody off that's kind of proclaimed that they should have your championship and challenge you because of the fact he doesn't know better. And when, let's say, that hard, cold pavement that hits him from what your experience and what you've done, it may tune him or put him out of tune into an alternate reality, which instead of calling him the big man of Tex Country, we might be calling him the little man of Tex Country.
Absolutely. And I honestly feel I'll give props to Big Tex for the amount of matches he has. He's been, pretty dominant inside the ring. But, again, he's not going to get far just like Robert Pearson with these fans. He needs to tap into his inner big Tex. He needs listen, there's a lot of potential with Tex.
I agree. I agree. Listen.
He just needs to unleash it. And he's not doing it. He's only a quarter of the way there.
All right, let
And
me ask you a follow-up on that because
yeah,
it's a great segue because I had Corey Graves on here right
okay.
around I think the time of Merry Mayhem, and I had asked this question. You're a veteran. You're going to completely understand what I'm about to tell you, champ. Do you think that Corey Graves is a hanger-on to Big Tex, and it's guys like Corey Graves that are actually withholding Big Tex from his true potential? Is that a fair statement for me to bring up?
That is an absolute fair statement. Only for the sheer fact is Corey Graves is trying to ride Big Tex's coattails.
His year was certainly not the year you had. I mean, his year,
No.
we said it in DBW, was for a guy that's been a multiple-time champion, a guy that's, we're going to see him in another company in Van Hansen's show on the 24th with Chase Wakefield, but in DBW, his success has not been the recent years we've seen from him.
Again, he's another one of those guys, like we mentioned earlier, stuck in limbo. So what did he do? He found Tex, and Tex doesn't realize that he's riding his coattails. And once Tex realizes it, I think it's going to be major problems for Corey Graves. Just saying.
So, I mean, should he just drop him? Should he just say, you know what? Okay, maybe I listen to Cyrus. Cyrus is a veteran. He knows better. Cyrus has been to the mountain. He's continued to stay on top. Should he take your advice and say, you know what, Cyrus, maybe I should leave you alone. Maybe I should focus on, Azriel. Maybe I should focus on Aaron Jones if you want to, but maybe leave you alone and drop Corey Graves, drop Robert Pearson, drop Jacob Cassidy, and kind of go your own way. And, maybe that'll lead you to where you want to be at some point this year.
Exactly. If he goes his own way and he focuses on himself and his true potential, he could be a champion within this year itself.
Okay, I have a follow-up on Robert Pearson, which you're going to chuckle to. But before I do that, say hello to my buddy, Michael Blackheart. Michael's from the state of Indiana. Michael's one of my favorite commenters who I kind of alluded to because tomorrow night officially, his father-in-law is the senior official in XCW. Festus Davis is going to be here live on Sportzwire Radio. And he, in the meantime, though, is saying hello. And Michael messaged me before. He's like, I heard your father, his father's coming on my show. I was like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm going to have to behave myself. Well, okay. I'm saying nothing. I know nothing about what's going to happen tomorrow night, but I will say that I have a feeling that Michael will tune into that one. But, I do want to ask you something. I probably should have asked you already, but what do you think about Robert Pearson's haircut?
Listen, he's a totally different man. Literally.
I didn't recognize him. I think I've asked the entire locker room that's come on since the haircut because we literally had him on, I think, a week before Merry Mayhem when he got the haircut. And I think I've asked everybody else about the haircut. Yes. I'm like, I got to ask Cyrus. If I don't, I'm going to kill myself.
I wanted to know who the hell the new guy was in the DBW locker room with that haircut. Totally different guy. But if he honestly thinks getting a haircut is gonna tap his, inner potential to be great in the ring, try again. Just try again. A haircut ain't gonna, win you over. It ain't gonna win you a title. It's not gonna win you over with fans. It's not gonna win you over with, Chaos Conspiracy. It's just gonna make you look like the fool more than you already are.
So basically, not a fan of the haircut?
Not a fan of the haircut. Nope.
I think the over-under right now is mostly, I want to say, under on the haircut.
Yeah.
I think I've had like at least a quarter of the locker room since, and I'm sure when Brandon Caselli comes on in a couple weeks, I'll ask Brandon that question. I think I asked Van that question. Somebody can check me on it, but I've definitely asked a number of people in the locker room. The under seems to be on the haircut, but maybe before I come back to Big Tex, I should also update you that the Blaze Ace Christian also got a haircut. But I'll actually say his haircut actually looked not that bad. I saw it yesterday on VTW, and I'm sure I'll ask Chase Wakefield this question. His haircut looked okay. He looked almost, Chase Wakefield probably tell us about it a little bit tomorrow, but the Blaze Ace Christian's haircut almost looks a little bit like one of the old Beatles. He looks like now like one it almost looks like Ringo, George, Paul, or John almost. He's got that now, instead of the floppy hair look, he's got like the moppy hair look, almost like he went from the 80s to the 60s. I thought that was a funny one. If you
Yes,
haven't
it
seen
was.
it, check it out. But okay, we'll come back to Ace Christian and his haircut because we don't have him on anytime soon, and we'll leave Ace to himself with the haircut. I'm sure Judgment will have a thought or two about that down the road. But Robert Pearson, I agree. The under is certainly right now on the haircut. But Big Tex wants to say something else.
Okay.
But what happens when the real Tex is unleashed? Who would be able to stop it? What do you say on that?
Who would be able to stop it? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. If he gets the real Tex to be unleashed finally, nobody can stop him. And that's given him a huge compliment.
But that goes back to the point you just made a few minutes ago. At the end of the day, that it's really guys like Graves, hanger-ons, old news, guys that really are in limbo, haven't been that relevant in DBW, that they're kind of hindering him from his full potential.
They actually are. And, Tex needs to realize this, that those guys are hanging on to him and his
They haven't
momentum.
had the success in 23.
No,
I mean, none of them
they
have.
haven't. Clearly, they haven't. If you watch DBW, with the fans, yourself, or anybody that has watched it in 2023, they're going to see that Graves has not had a successful year, but he stayed relevant due to who? Big Tex.
Big Tex. I think now somebody can correct me on this, which I'm sure somebody will tomorrow. I believe Graves' record was something like 1-8 this year.
Yeah, his record was really, really. It's a shame.
It was like the New York Jets season this year for us here in New York. It was like the Jets season right after Aaron Rodgers went down. They, certainly the season was over. That was it. It was a dud. It was over. It was like that was kind of like Corey Graves' season. It was basically that's it. He just wasn't successful.
And Graves, mind you, Graves used to be, on top of his game.
Yep.
He used to be former Anarchy champ, former World Extreme champ, former member of the Dawn's March.
He's been in other places, a world champion in other feds. I mean, this is a guy, and the Dawn's March reunites for one night only, February the 24th, a fight for a cure. I'll put the post up for that in a little while. But yeah, this is a guy that's been in the peripheral or around the main event in the past. I take nothing away from him on that.
Oh, exactly. I take nothing, away from the accomplishments that Graves has accomplished, whether it be in DBW or other companies. But Tex needs to realize that Graves is riding his momentum, and it needs to be cut off in order for Tex to get to that next step.
All right, here, and also Big Tex actually says something kind of, I think, along the lines of that. And not to sound horrible, but he did need my help to beat T3, Mr. Thomas Taft. Yeah, absolutely. Because what?
Yes.
Big splash, play. What did you splash him, if I recall? Was it like 3 times in that match? It was a couple of times at least, right? If I recall correctly.
3 times, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you just made the point, Big Tex, that Cyrus, the current champion, is telling you. So should you not take that advice?
Take the advice of yours truly. You'll get somewhere.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll come back to Big Tex in a second, and I'll save Van Hansen in a few minutes but I want to bring up my first guest of 2024, a guy, Jackson Sabre. Now, Jackson Sabre certainly had a lot to say about you, and he was basically saying, and he said this after the match where you were successful. Now, I have selective amnesia, and from what I saw, it was 1, 2, 3. You won that match. So, what I recall correctly, you won the match. So it doesn't matter who helped or who didn't help. You got the pin. But Jackson Sabre sounded like he was owed something from you. He sounded like a man that basically, he said this here after the match, that now it's time for him to get his crack. I'm giving you the opportunity now because it's been just about a month since Jackson Sabre came on to Sportzwire Radio, and the show again, which is on the DBW YouTube page, has been out now for over 5 weeks. I'm giving you the opportunity to respond to another young buck, another new kid on the block, and Mr. Jackson Sabre and his comments and everything else that he had to say, not only here on Sportswire Radio, but after the match and what he did to Mr. V to the H Van Hansen to, in his words, help you retain your championship.
Let's put it this way. Jackson Sabre had a personal vendetta with Van Hansen.
Yes. He beat him and shot at you, correct.
Yes. He tried to use it at his expense to help me, so that way he thinks that automatically I owe him, when in reality I don't owe him a thing, because I could have clearly easily beat V to the H Van Hansen. Okay, close out the chapter, but nope. What does Jackson Sabre do? He gets greedy, comes in, interferes, takes out Van Hansen, and then makes it seem like I helped you. Now you give me that global title. It don't work that way.
And
And
also, I made the point that Van Hansen, there was times in the match where he was waiting around for you. He
yes,
gave you time to get up. Even the
you
spot in the outside, he gave you plenty of time to come up. And I said this to Van Hansen last week on the air. Van Hansen, you're a veteran. You've been in the game a
yes,
while. You've been a pro wrestler now for several years.
yes, he has.
Listen, you're not Jackson Sabre. You're not Big Tex. No disrespect to those guys.
No,
You're not
no, not at
Robert
all.
Pearson, but he's a pro. He's a
Yes,
pro. I mean, you know, as a pro, you know better what to do. If your opponent is down, you take advantage for that, and you do whatever it takes to go
yep,
out and get a victory. And Van Hansen, other places, has been a champion and a very established champion and a
yes, he
dominant
has.
one. He's the
Yep,
longest running tag team champion of one of the companies he works for. So
that is
Van
correct.
Hansen, he has no excuse.
Nope, no excuse at all. And I mean, hell, he threw me into a pile of chairs where the fans were, and still, again, he didn't capitalize on the moments. He was, I don't know if he was buying his time, trying to think of the next step, but again, that one little slip up and giving me a little bit of time to catch my, momentum and my breath, so to say, so I could, swing the tide, so to say. That was on his accord.
And I brought that up to him, and I think his answer was, well, he was kind of almost, I guess, sort of thought about it, kind of reflective on it, more or less.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like at the end of the day, and I'll come back to Big Tess because he actually has a comment, which I'm going to play on the screen for a second.
Or think about this, Tom. Was it
Sure.
the fact that he had Jackson Sabre in the back of his mind the entire time?
Well, you could make that case.
Yeah.
But what my take was on it, Champ, tell me your thoughts on it, because obviously you're the veteran. You're the guy that won the match. You were the guy that was in the ring. I think, though, Van Hansen put himself in a spot that he had to worry about Sabre because he could have at least put you away earlier in that match, and he gave you, the veteran, to be able to recover. And as far as I saw, as far as I recall correctly, it was 1, 2, 3. Ding, ding, ding. And still, DBW, global champion, the It Factor, Cyrus. So that's from what I saw.
And you're right. That's what you saw. You saw,
I don't see anything else. And the record books don't tell me, well, Jackson Sabre screwed Van Hansen. The record book doesn't say that.
Nope. And I think as the match went on, Van Hansen, again, his mind was focused on becoming global champ. But I think as the match went on, he knew that, okay, Jackson Sabre is going to be somewhere because he had the mentality that Jackson Sabre at some point was going to intervene at any moment in time, whether it would be for a global title shot or if V2H was doing any other. He knew that Jackson Sabre had a personal vendetta against him. So, I mean, again, the record books doesn't say that, doesn't have the asterisk, so to say, and it doesn't say Cyrus won due to Jackson Sabre. No, it says Cyrus pinned Van Hansen.
That's it.
1, 2, 3.
That's what I saw. I watched the show multiple times. That's what I saw. And there's no asterisks in wrestling. No. There's no, well, by a technical. No, it's either you won or you lost. And Van Hansen knows better. But let's come back to Sabre. And I promise you, Big Tex, I'm going to come back to your comment because it's actually a good one. But Sabre, though, what do you make of him? Because here's another guy that, has come in here, sure. He's got a victory over Ace Christian. He certainly, was competitive in what we've seen from him, the Anarchy Championship and in some other feds he's had, a fair amount of success. But relatively speaking in DBW, another new guy that thinks he's entitled to something. And, I'm sure that you would like to respond a little further on him because I don't necessarily know if he's entitled to anything because as far as I saw, I mean, he himself lost to Van Hansen. So what gripe does he have?
I mean, well, let's start this starting point. Every new up and comer into DBW, I will give them props. They are good in their own right. So that's number one. Number two, Jackson Sabre. Yes, he did get a huge victory over Ace Christian, but that's only one huge victory.
Okay.
Again, he wrestled up against Van Hansen. Again, Van Hansen's a hell of a pro, a hell of a resume. Okay?
Absolutely. No question.
But again, Jackson Sabre, like you have mentioned, thinks he's entitled. You've only wrestled, quite frankly,
A handful of matches.
a handful of matches, two great competitors. You've dominated in an anarchy division, so so to say. I'll give you credit. You are a hell of a competitor. You are
Rumble, he was okay in the Rumble. Anarchy, we saw him in the 4-way match. Okay, got the win over Christians, been in some, multi-man matches, but relatively speaking, the body of work doesn't say to me, okay, that guy's automatically your number one contender.
No. As far as being automatically number one contender, when it comes to the global title division or the global title contenders, you're not automatically a number one contender. You will have to fight and compete to become number one contender. And honestly, if he keeps going at the pace he's going, he could be a game changer. He really can.
I think listen, Jackson Sabre, and we're speaking here with the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, the It Factor Cyrus. He's the reigning defending DBW Global Champion. He's our 26th member of our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And you want to follow DBW, all these links below. I cannot stress enough the fact you want to support DBW. I have my DBW shirt on here, so make sure you support this company as much as I do. But we are here right now with the champion. And I'll say this here about, listen, Jackson Sabre. I agree with you. There's potential. There's no question that, he's got some ability. He's shown himself in other places, but the guy that really should have the most claim for your championship, and he hasn't even really asked you for a title shot, is actually the man that has won, I believe, the second most matches, or no, the most matches, as a matter of fact, in DBW this year, is the Bitcoin billionaire Chase Wakefield. And notice you don't see him politicking. Notice you don't see him going asking and demanding a championship. He just goes out there and wins matches, and he's got big wins in his own right. And listen, at the end of the day, the Bitcoin billionaire Chase Wakefield is the guy that's got the resume. And these other guys that have come on here and they've got 1 win, 2 wins, but then you look at how many matches did they have, and what's the body of work, what's their history, and so at the end of the day, it's the Bitcoin billionaire Chase Wakefield. If he won, obviously, I think he's focused on Aaron Jones. So, I think he's really focused on
he's
trying to win.
Jones,
yeah, he's focused on Aaron Jones. But my point was that Chase Wakefield could be the guy that would really stake a claim at a rematch for your championship. But he's not doing that because, again, he's going to go out there and do what he continues to do best. And, and he was the Hub City champion, and maybe he wants that championship back, or maybe he wants to borrow that championship, like another promotion where he claimed to be a champion, but really isn't the champion. But, who knows? But I'll save that for tomorrow. But let me come back to Big Tex before I get to a good question from Ethan. I'll bring up Ethan's question before. But Big Tex says, you know what? Maybe everyone is right, from Cyrus to Jackson Sabre. Maybe I need to lose Chaos, Conspiracy, and Graves. What do you say? Is that finally maybe somebody turning the corner, I bet you think? Or what do you say on that?
There you go, Tex. Turn the corner. Turn that corner. You're pretty much proclaimed right here, live on Sportswire.
After 2 months. 2 months of this talk.
2 months. Give you a platform. You're commenting left and right. And this is great. You're finally getting it through your head that you need to lose them in order to fully unleash Big Tex country.
Do you think he'll really do it, though? Do you think that he'll have the cojones to go out and actually do it? It's there's an old expression in life. Do you know this? Actions speak louder than words.
He's going to be held down for his entire career by Graves, unless Graves takes a shot at Tex and takes Tex down.
But I want to bring that up for a second. Ethan, I'll come back to you. But, if you recall correctly, in the match with Judgment, Graves came out.
Okay.
But he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything, right? So if Graves was such this great friend of Big Tex, wouldn't he have gone out and maybe stood down or stared down Judgment or kind of did something to help his friend? Don't you think that would have been the case, or am I completely off on that point?
No, you're not completely off, because if Graves was such a good friend, he would try to help Tex win that DBW.
That was exactly my point, because I would have thought, okay, if it was somebody else in that instance, we've seen it before in DBW with groups and other people that they would go out and help
Yep.
their member. They would help their partner more or less. And that's kind of why I'm a little bit sort of still perplexed in what Tex sees, at least some may say, what Tex sees in Graves. Now, he's talked about the fact that he's been giving him advice. He's talking about the fact that he believes him. He knows, he sees it in him, and he's apparently this judge of character. But who am I to judge, right? I don't know.
Yep.
I don't
Who
know.
are you? Who are you and I to judge? What Graves tells Tex. Tex, you're a hell of a guy, hell of a competitor, hell of an up and comer. But again, you gotta lose the dead weight. You just gotta.
Maybe it's too many of those Yu-Gi-Oh card games in the back.
Quite possibly so.
You did like that one, but actually,
Yeah.
I'm gonna sort of break away from that briefly, and I want Ethan to be able to ask you a question, which
Yes,
is actually a good one
absolutely.
because it's a
Come
Hall
on,
of
Ethan.
Fame one.
What's the
Well,
question?
That's a good one. This is a good one.
Yeah.
Who's the toughest competitor you've had to face in your career? That's actually a great question. I'll let Ethan ask it. You can answer it.
Well, Ethan, there was three tough competitors I have wrestled in my career. I shouldn't say, I've had a lot of tough matches, throughout my career, and I've had three tough competitors that I've gone up against. I've gone up against Mr. Judgment. I've gone up against the King of the Mountain, Navon McDonald.
I just saw Navon McDonald yesterday, and I was like, that's a guy. In fact, I'll break the fourth wall. Jack Delta told me that's a guy that you want to, when he's on your screen. We've seen him obviously in DBW, and unfortunately, he had to drop his championship, but he's a guy that you want to watch him and just focus on him. I mean, he's just a phenomenal talent. I want to put that out there.
He really is. And then I also wrestled a gentleman by the name of Noah Idol.
Okay.
And all three of them, were really, really tough in their own right, and every single match was different. I fought Navon McDonald in a no disqualification match. I fought Mr. Judgment in the first ever Heaven's Gate match in DBW history.
We spoke about that on the first time it came on. Yep.
And I faced Noah Idol, and I believe it was I could be wrong, a penitentiary qualifier match back at My Bloody Valentine many years ago. But if I had to pick one competitor, it would probably have to be Mr. Judgment, for the sure fact is when I first faced him in that Heaven's Gate match, I did not know what I was getting myself into. Yes, I may have cashed in my number one contender title to become world champion at the time, but again, we were doing a full length ladder match. So none of us had any clue how the match was going to go. We just went out there and put on one hell of a show for the fans. I'm not taking nothing away from Mr. Navon McDonald. Sorry.
Tongue twisted there for a second. It's okay. You're a Hall of Famer. You get a pass.
And Noah Idol, but at the end of the day, it has to be Mr. Judgment. And again, I faced Sammy Nothing multiple times.
Spoke about him before. He's come up on prior shows.
Yeah. Faced Caden Phoenix multiple times. I have faced and another one, Damien Fatale. I faced Damien Fatale. I faced Scorpion the Assassin. I mean, the list goes on. I faced Roland Havoc. I faced Colin Graves. Like I said, the list goes on.
Did I not say that throughout the DBW history, you've always been right there or at the top? Listen, Roland Havoc, obviously a man that's been on here multiple times, and he's really the reason why I got into DBW, and I want to give him a shout out on that to break the fourth wall for a second. Damien Fatale, obviously, let's not even, we can certainly, that's his name speaks for itself. Scorpion the Assassin, we've obviously mentioned. Sammy Nothing's been mentioned here on the past. And, I think that at the end of the day, Judgment is the guy that when I look at this sport currently, he's the guy a lot of people want to face. And, not to bring up Jack Delta again, but when Jack Delta was here, he was in your chair a couple of weeks ago, right around this time. And Jack Delta said Judgment was a guy he would like to face. So what that tells you is that the outside world of DBW, Judgment is a guy a lot of people pay notice to. Judgment is a guy a lot of people pay attention to. And I happen to think, as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio, the number one global radio station, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters, the Reverend Tom Bryce, when a guy like Jack Delta, the one and only Jack Delta, says, you know what? Judgment is a guy that I think I'd like to face. Judgment is a guy that I would certainly like to test my skills. I think it has to be that Judgment would be the guy that's your toughest opponent, because I think of what he was then, but even what he is now. I think, and I watched his quote unquote other name, alter ego. I feel like he's like
Yeah,
Madonna at this point. What's the latest name he has? I thought that was funny. But
that was-
he's at the end of the day, he's still to me more dominant, and his arsenal, his move set, I think is better now than it was. And that's what I think, for my opinion. Again, just my
yes,
opinion.
that's
Judgment
true.
is the guy that I think would be at the top of the list of people you faced.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good enough. Big Tex wants to come back, and I want to play his comment because you know what, Big Tex, it seems like he's listening to you now. Who would have thought? Who would have thought this night? Big Tex seems to be listening to you. It looks like somebody's taking your advice for a change. It almost seemed like he was mad that I lost the judgment. Yeah, I want to come back to that because
Yes.
we had Tex here, and Tex, correct me if I'm wrong. I know we spoke about this. We spoke about this on the air. I brought up Graves, but if I recall correctly, Corey Graves had like this weird he
Yep.
didn't I don't know. It was almost like you would think if I was my friend, right, was in action and my friend was beaten. Now, what do I know, right? I would have ran there, rushed to his aid. I would have did a stare down. Even if I knew I was getting my butt kicked, I would have at least, showed that I'm here, I'm loyal. And I
Yeah.
didn't get that vibe. I just
Nope.
didn't, objectively speaking, I didn't get that. You know what? Yeah, Corey Graves, this guy who's been the world extreme, who's been the global champ, all these different things, a veteran guy. But I didn't feel like, he went there and said, you know what? I'm going to go and, at least back my guy up. And, even if I stood to judgment, so toe to toe, or just looked at him, he didn't do that. It was kind of like,
Nope.
I don't know, weird almost.
Yeah, he just when Tex lost to Judgment, you could tell that one, Graves was disappointed in Tex because
Yep.
he didn't get the job done. Two, was Graves thinking maybe Tex would owe me a title shot if Tex was champ.
Well, I have a follow-up to that. It's a slight detour. Tell me your thoughts. I think that what we've been talking about here throughout the theme of the second half of the show is that Graves saw that his meal ticket was certainly not going to be able to cash his ticket into a free ride. That's what I think he saw. And the fact that that Big Tex went down, that's my opinion. Listen, what do I know, right? I clearly, I don't have any insight. I have no opinion. I'm unintelligent. So, I would have to think that, to me, at least from my vantage point, I think Mr. Graves saw that an opportunity to cash in a meal ticket didn't work.
Exactly. It didn't work at all. And I think Graves had the mentality of, hell, I couldn't beat Judgment, but I could beat Tex because I know Tex personally and I know how to get the job done.
I agree with that 1,000%. I want to say hello to Jules NYC. How you doing,
Hi,
Jules?
Jules.
If
Good
you're
evening.
joining us here, our good buddy who, by the way, mentioned us on Sportswire, thank you very much. That's not why you're in the Hall of Fame, but it's certainly you're in the Hall of Fame because you are greatness personified. He is the It Factor Cyrus, and he is here with us. We're talking the fallout from Merry Mayhem and where we go from here in 2024. So thank you, Jules, for tuning into Sportswire Radio. If you can, please sub to the DBW YouTube page at Dominating Breakout Wrestling. I repeat, Dominating Breakout Wrestling. Also changed the name just now on Facebook, so I will fix that for tomorrow. It's officially back now to Dominant Breakout Wrestling. Thankfully, they took out Backyard. They're no longer a Backyard company anymore, so I'm very happy about that, and we're certainly moving to great things, and she also wants to congratulate you. Yes, we all congratulate you. But Big Tex, what has gotten into Big Tex tonight? He kind of seems like this is not the Big Tex I'm used to. He says even back on Thunder Punch before Merry Mayhem, he almost wanted to attack me after the Rumble.
Exactly, Tex. You're seeing the writing on the wall. You're finally seeing the writing on the wall.
Wait, I want to say, has Big Tex been abducted tonight? Is this the Big Tex I'm used to these past couple months?
No, he's finally seeing the writing on the wall. He's finally seeing what Graves is doing to get one over Tex, so to say. Graves is trying to get over on Tex to become relevant, so that way the fans can say, "Oh, Graves."
And notice this tonight. Where's Corey Graves? I don't see him in the chat tonight.
Nope.
He's usually in the chat. I don't see him.
Nope, he's not. He is not in the chat at all.
He's not backing his buddy. I'm finally seeing the light.
Exactly. Thank
Interesting. And speaking of people who see the light and they want to say hello to you, that is the IMF World Heavyweight Champion. He is the popular heel monster himself, Mr. Soldier GP, and he gives the eyes. I don't know what the eye emoji means, but he's giving you the eyes. I don't
Good
know.
evening, soldier.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that's certainly okay. Well, there you go. We'll give the eyes. But okay, I guess so. Obviously, Big Tex. We'll come back to him. I want to ask you this question. I've asked this question as we're getting into the final nitty gritty part of the show.
Yes.
And what are your goals in 2024?
My goals?
Yeah.
Again, right chapters. I'm starting chapter 3 this coming March. You know, God only knows what chapter 3 holds. Chapter 1 was the culmination of me becoming global champion. Okay. I was global champion at the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2, well, VTH thought he could, waltz in and, take the title. Obviously, from your nearest Burger King, he went back to his nearest Burger King. And chapter
Do you think he likes the Whopper, by the way? He doesn't strike me as a Whopper guy. Maybe have it your way, I suppose.
No, he tried to have it his way, but clearly it didn't work. Chapter 2 closed, Tom. Yours truly sitting here. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, champ, it's okay. You don't have to stand while we're here on Sportswire. You can sit down. Okay.
Stand, sit, doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, at the end of 2024, I am still going to be your reigning, defending, undisputed DBW global champion. And I will be sitting here having this discussion with you, and I will proclaim it on January 24th, not 24th.
29th. What's 2025? I know it's weird still because we're like, yeah, I know everything's like weird. Like even a couple of days ago, I was still writing 2023, so it's okay. You get a pass. You're a Hall of Fame. Your greatness personified. The accolades don't lie, so it's okay. You get a pass.
No, I get a lot of passes, but again, at the end of the day, Tom, when I come back on Sportswire Radio at the end of the year, I am going to proclaim, like I am proclaiming now, that I'll be the most dominating DBW global champion in the history of that company.
You know what? That's a very, very interesting statement that you made because I was going to kind of ask you that, but I think you basically answered it for us that when we know you'll be back before the season because we have a long way to go for that. But I'm sure when we end the year in 2024, though, please let's not end the year just here. We just started the year. I just want us to just continue to go through 2024. But I have no doubt that you will certainly remain on top. You will be the DBW champion. But I want to give a quick plug, real quick. Actually, if I could break things for a second, to Van Hansen, because Fight for a Cure, February 24th, Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling. The Dawn's March are going to be in action. We have a big Rumble where I'm sure we'll see some familiar faces. And also this match, Brandon Castelli and Van Hansen. I'm actually supporting the event. I'm sponsoring and I'm giving a donation at some point soon. So I want to make sure I actually put my endorsement on the record out there. We're sponsoring the show. And we have Brandon Castelli, the mauler who rocks hard and also might be a little sneaky. He's going to be here 2 days before the show, February 22nd, and returning once again tomorrow, February the 20th, 3 weeks from tomorrow, Van Hansen, V to the H. I'll ask him about your comments, but also we'll talk a little bit about this show. It's for a great cause. It's for a young girl out there, and it's really important that people go out there to the Amplified Wrestling Facebook page to find out more, to like it, and everything they can do to help and support this cause. It's really for a great cause. In fact, it's such a great cause that Jimmy Controversy, of all people, actually said, this event is good. I support it. I would love to have been there, but because unfortunately I'm wrestling for GTS and I'm also with my Pro Wrestling Venom that weekend, I can't be there and attend. But Van Hansen, you have my full support, my full endorsement, and I want to make sure that I concur about that as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, your voice of all wrestling, the Reverend Tom Bryce, that we strongly support this show. We'll have more coverage of it. In fact, Chase Wakefield's going to be here tomorrow to talk about it. So maybe I'll get the poster of Chase. Maybe I shouldn't get the poster of Chase Wakefield tomorrow because that'll fill up Chase Wakefield's head even further. We don't want that. He's got Aaron Jones to talk about. He's got his Bitcoin billions to talk about. He's got this YouTube championship to talk about. The most wins in DBW, get a Hall of Fame certificate to talk about, I'm sure. And then he's got obviously this. So maybe I shouldn't put the poster up, but we'll see. Maybe we'll see what kind of mood I'm in. But obviously, I want people to support the show, support the event. Go to the Amplified Wrestling page, and definitely we'll find out more information. Okay, so obviously, as we're coming into the remainder of the show, I mean, what do you see as a difference starting this year, and how does it feel from last year? I think I kind of asked this question again, but I'll phrase it in a different way. Now we're on top. We're starting the year on top. Does that change your approach starting the season here in DBW?
No, it does not change my approach at all. I'm still gonna spearhead the global division. I'm still gonna take on all challengers from all companies, from around the states, from across the sea. It doesn't matter where you come from.
Oh, we do have some friends across the sea that actually are promoters. We mentioned James Barris, the owner and promoter of Cutlery Championship Wrestling, and I will actually mention that he has watched DBW. He actually spoke about you guys. He spoke about Omen and Soldier, the IMF. He knows them very well, and he watches some of our companies on Sports because he's in our Hall of Fame, and he actually knows, a lot of the guys, including yourself. Your name was mentioned, Chase Wakefield, Brandon Costelli, and Mr. Barris definitely knows what you're doing, and he's, never say never, as I'd like to say.
Exactly. Never say never. And again, like I've stated previously, it's going to be a continuation in the Book of Cyrus. All comers, whether you're as green as the grass or whether you're an in-ring veteran of multiple years, I'm going to take on all comers. And again, the end result is going to be me standing above you as your global champion.
How excited are you to start the season coming up here in March?
I am absolutely 100% excited. I'm ready to dominate more than ever. I'm ready to dominate and proclaim this global division like it's never been claimed before. We've had global champions in DBW.
Yep.
Great global champions, mind you. Greats like Navon McDonald.
Yep.
Greats like RJ Carnage. Great like Ace Christian.
And RJ Carnage came back. Oh, by the way, have to mention him because Chase Wakefield, did you see that one coming? Because I'm going to definitely remind you about that one again.
Yeah, I saw that one coming. Chase thought he would get one up on RJ, but clearly, Chase faltered. And
I guess he didn't talk to Aaron about that.
No, he didn't run that by Aaron, because if you ran it by Aaron, Aaron would have probably given him some, pointers here and there to pick up the victory. But again, Chase being Chase, he thought he had the upper hand, but we'll give credit where credit is due. Chase put on a good match and again came short.
I think what I learned tonight, yes, we put you in our Hall of Fame before we move on to end the show soon, is that Big Tech says, honestly, thank you, Cyrus, for showing me the truth. I've been doing this a while. Obviously, we just celebrated 5 years officially on the air. We're post 5 years now on Sportswire, but I don't think I've actually seen a wrestler in the chat all of a sudden change their tune in a show like this. I don't know. Is this really? I still want to know. Is this Big Tex or am I getting somebody else?
Oh no, it's Big Tex. It is Big Tex, and the reason why I said it's Big Tex because he's finally seeing everything that Graves has done thus far. He's finally seeing in the back of his mind the true potential he can become, because he can become a dominating force in DBW or anywhere he competes, as long as he doesn't have.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it was funny you said that real quick, because when I had the Jimmy controversy here, Big Tex was in the chat kind of mouthing off a little bit to Mr. Controversy. I mean, I was kind of like, wow, Big Tex is mouthing off to Jimmy freaking Controversy. Okay. I mean, you didn't get the job done against Judgment, but this is Jimmy Controversy. You sure you want to do that? In the back of my mind was like,
he wanted to do it. Hey, if Tex is confident about doing something, he's going to do it. And this is the absolute Tex that he needs to be. Finally.
And he confirmed it. It's the real Tex talk. I'm like stunned. I'm like, this is, like I said, this is the first time I could honestly say in about 5 years plus I'm doing this on Sportswire that I actually had somebody change their tune after hearing what somebody had to say. I mean,
I give him a sermon through my Hall of Fame ceremony, and he saw the way. He saw the way, and we'll see in 2024 if it comes to fruition.
Now, don't say that in the way that Judgment would, where he'd kind of go out and go like this, and don't do the Judge. I know you obviously are okay with Judgment now. You guys have that respect, but I still wouldn't go down that road there. But okay, Big Tex, I'm obviously I'm still baffled, but okay, all right, fair enough here. But obviously, coming toward to the end of the show here, And is there anything else that you'd like to bring up tonight that we haven't particularly discussed? Could be anything on your mind before we sign off for the evening.
Um, the only thing I could bring up to mind is the fact that BBW as a whole is on the precipice of something revolutionary.
Okay.
Um, especially with the global division, especially with our world championship. And I'm gonna leave these fans with something to be ecstatic for, something to tune into, because 2024 could possibly be one of our biggest years to date. 2023 we set the bar. We set the bar with many matches. We set the bar with many events. Hell,
The
we had our
viewership was about through the roof. It was a big deal what the platform did for the
absolutely.
company.
We introduced the first World War. We replaced that with our biggest event of the year, Judgment Day. We replaced it. Now it's World War.
How about being indoors now year round? That's a big deal for the company. Look at how far from you're an original where the company was and where it is now. We obviously saw that video. I think it was before World War where we showed where the company was literally in the ground to where we are now. We have live music, we have people attending, and it's like this is a company. Look at where it's going to be. I say it all the time on the platform here.
Yes, it's going to be very monumental year for DBW here in 2024, and the one that's driving the train, so to say, is yours truly right here. I am going to spearhead the entire company into the direction it needs to be. And if anybody wants to get behind me and follow my lead, then by all means, get behind me and follow along.
Well, I'll tell you what, before we sign off tonight, there's a lot of ways you can do that. Very simple, straight to the point. Facebook, YouTube, especially where you can watch content, Dominating Breakout Wrestling. Also, you want to follow them on Twitter. Though Twitter's really not active much, but still go and follow them anyway. Just do it. And also merchandise. I cannot stress enough how you want to support many of our companies that come on Sportzwire Radio. It's through merchandise. Bonfire.com, /store, /dominant, -breakout, -wrestling. This is how we help our companies. Or if you really want to support somebody, you really want to support what they do, the time that's put in here. Everybody's doing it for the reasons we're doing it here on Sportzwire Radio. And that's why we want to support those that are doing it for the love of this game, for the love of this sport, and everything that we have come to like here on Sportzwire Radio. Obviously, we want to support those that have been so generous with their time on Sportzwire Radio, and that is DBW. So please make sure that you support them, especially on the merchandise. And like I said, I agree with you. And listen, before we sign off, Jack Delta was on not only my show on Sportswire, but he did another podcast with the young gentleman, Ace Reed, who's the BWU world champion in Australia. And he talked about DBW. He talked about the product. He talked about what DBW is doing. And I guarantee that a lot of people are talking about DBW. And I think that DBW is certainly, the name only continues to get better and better and better. It's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger from here. And the reasons why is our official 26th member into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, Mr. It Factor Cyrus himself. He is also our reigning, defending DBW Global Champion. He is poised to write Chapter 3, and he's poised to write several more chapters right after it. And I guarantee you, this book is going to be as big as any books you ever seen. Forget about those Stephen King books. Forget about Angels and Demons. This guy is going to have a book that I promise you, you're going to be reading chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter. It's going to be a never-ending chapter because he's permanently staying on top. In fact, he'll be on top so long that we might have to induct him into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame a second time, a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time. Everybody talks about Ric Flair being a multi-time Hall of Famer, Hogan a multi-time Hall of Famer. Forget about all that, because I think the It Factor Cyrus, very well, our U.S. version of Mr. Sportswire, could be getting inducted many, many more times, and nobody is taking that global championship away from him. Because, everybody can talk about, well, I'm the most time champion, I'm that time champion, but no. He's going to stay global champion, and he has nobody else in his sights or in his way. That includes you, Jackson Saber, Van Hansen. You know what, Big Tex? Maybe you learned a thing or two today. It ain't going to be you, but I guarantee you it's nobody on the current DBW roster that's taking this championship away from him.
I will leave with this comment.
Okay.
We touched upon this briefly in the middle of our show here. VTW.
Yes, I watched yesterday's show. I hope everybody did. What a show that was.
Great premiere. Great season 2 premiere. I couldn't be more pleased with the premiere in its own right.
Yep.
They're doing great things down
Oh
there. I
my
got
god, did that show, you know what that reminded me so much of, like an old 1980s
yes,
wrestling show out of a TV studio.
yes.
I was talking to certain people in the locker room. They asked me, "Did you
Almost,
see the show?" Yep.
almost like an NWA almost.
Ah, you stole the words out of my mouth. I think that was the word.
Yep,
Somebody in the locker room, I'm sure when they watch this back will say, "Yeah, he did say that," because that was exactly what I thought when I watched that show. It reminded me so much of the old NWA in the mid late 80s. That TV, that setting there, and I even heard from a birdie out there that the Hardys actually wrestled in that building. I did not know that. I don't want to say who it was because I'll get shot. Whoever told,
yes.
I don't want to say their name. Who told me
Nope.
that? Maybe I'll tell it to you off the air. But when I heard that fact, I was like, no kidding.
Yep. And let's just say there's a lot of greats down there in BTW. A
Yes.
lot of greats. But BTW may be getting greater this year.
Ooh, you know what? I'm gonna say nothing. I'm not even gonna certainly even throw a thought or two out there. I'm not gonna ask you a question because I just want people to stay tuned. Because I know reunion is coming up. I know there's gonna be a lot of VTW shows ahead. And VTW again, I look at pound for pound companies. Obviously, you guys are right up there. Certainly, XCW have XCW's Festus Davis here. Like to me, those are the mothership companies. The mothership companies. IMF will throw them in there as well. IMF's right there. But to
Yep.
me, companies that have the best pound for pound production, the pound for pound announcing, the editing, the talent. When I watch VTW, like you said, you and I both think the same way. It reminded me of watching an old NWA Mid South 1980s wrestling TV show, where the setting was and the ring was so up close and just the lighting, the move set, the way the matches were kind of the way they went on their own and the different things. So definitely, I mean, just really, really well thought out. That was to me, a wrestling show I would want to watch over and over and over again. I encourage people to do the same as well. In fact, again, I keep bringing them up because it's, I bring up, I think every day now I bring up Jack Delta and Jimmy Controversy. Flip a coin, which one? And that would be mentioned to you as well. Don't worry. You get mentioned also quite a bit. But when Jack Delta had said on the air with us, he said, Tom, VTW, that's a company I've been a fan of for a long time. That's a fan of a company I'm a fan of for many, many years. And he was telling me also off the air why. And I was watching some of those little things. And VTW, I could not praise them enough. And we had Aaron here. Surely he's their world champion. But just, again, phenomenal, phenomenal company. I encourage people while you're waiting for DBW to return to go out and watch Versus the World Wrestling. Just go to VTW Wrestling on their YouTube page and support them. Just when DBW comes back, watch DBW. Watch Cyrus kick butt. Watch everybody else kick butt. But in the meantime, go out there and support places like VTW. Go out and support IMF, ROEW, XCW, everybody else. All wrestling matters. So that's what I say. But obviously, I've done enough talking because I got to talk twice tomorrow. I got Chase Wakefield. That could go on for hours. So let me give you the floor. It's been an absolute honor to have had you back. I can't wait to have you on here once again. And certainly our Hall of Fame definitely now has greatness. It has definitely become global because you were in it. So I want to give you the floor. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say, champ, the floor is yours.
Like I said, VTW is going to only be greater this year than what they already are. But I'll just leave that open-ended.
No comment. I'm saying no comment.
And I also want everybody to know that Sportswire Radio, all wrestling matters.
Thank you.
Wrestling matters. It's not just, one company against another company. And it's not, people and their companies across the sea compared to us in the States. No, all wrestling matters, whether it be from backyard to underground to indie to professional.
I'm so glad you said that because I don't want to go into, maybe I'll tell you off the air, but obviously our guest yesterday talked about that he was parting ways with DBW, and we love DVG and we want to wish him well. But one of the things I always, not to go on a long soapbox because I've done this so many times throughout the last month, but I really believe in the sport of wrestling as a whole. I really believe in the fact that to me it doesn't matter where you're wrestling. I always looked at it like, again, if I was a fan of basketball and I was watching pickup basketball in a basketball court in a park somewhere or in a schoolyard, it was basketball to me. Whether I'm watching DBW, whether I'm watching somebody in the UK like CCW, whether I'm watching XCW, whether I'm watching TBW or anybody else out there, to me, it's wrestling. And I just want to support the sport of wrestling. And I really decry when others want to tell me who I should choose and who I should not. And I'm
No.
so glad you brought that up, because that's why I've adopted this hashtag of All Wrestling Matters, because I truly believe it doesn't matter what your background is, your orientation, where you wrestle, how you speak. It should be about this sport. And that's why I feel that this is my rallying cry. I'll be honest with you. Some people are going to be disappointed in it, but I actually will actually put off things in my life to really cover this sport, because I believe in it so much. And I believe in the people like yourself that go out and spend time away from your family, from your different responsibilities, to give us the opportunity to enjoy it. So that's what I feel, that I need to go out there and continue to wave the flag and adopt this rallying cry, because it means to me that much. And to see that many people every time we're on Sportswire, I feel like that this is what I'm supposed to do. It's not about me. I don't want any credit. People have asked me, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't want to be in it. I want to give the people an opportunity that have not been recognized. That's why I'm here. And that's why All Wrestling Matters is our hashtag.
Exactly. And that'll be a forever hashtag as long as Sportswire Radio.
I'm going to go in the grave with it. Don't worry. I'm not planning to quit sports, although some people would like me to do that. But no, I'm glad that you brought that up. And thank you for that. It's absolute honor to have had you. And I want people one more time to follow you on Twitter at _factor_Cyrus. Also, one more time here, DBW and all their platforms. Please support them, and especially on two platforms. One more time, I cannot stress this enough. YouTube, dominating Breakout Wrestling, close to 4,000 subscribers. They're neck and neck with BTW. How ironic. BTW is over 4,000. We're just under 4,000 here. So let's get us over the threshold. Also, Bonfire. If you want a shirt like mine, go out there and support DBW. And I'm going to be getting more shirts as the summer certainly goes into fruition. And people have asked me one more thing. People are like, well, what's in your merchandise? What do you wear outside? And I'm like, wrestling shirts. I don't wear anything else. I think at this point, I hope I'm one day, when it's 50, 60 years from now, I just get buried maybe in a bunch of wrestling shirts. Hopefully that's will be the case. I'll be buried in my mutton chops and my wrestling shirts. That's it. I don't want to wear anything else. I don't want to wear suits anymore. I don't want to wear ties. I want to wear wrestling shirts. In fact, I even went to a fancy steakhouse last year, and the guy was like, well, why aren't you in a suit? I'm like, nah, I'm in my wrestling shirt. I mean, that's how I want to be. So that's it. I'm not changing. Nobody else should. This is Cyrus. He's our Red Factor. He is greatest personified. Our Hall of Fame finally now is great. It is finally now global, because he is the 26th member of our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame in our third class. We're going to see him in action for sure in DBW back in March. We'll see. I'm sure everybody else has to say, no doubt, Chase Wakefield, you have a very, very tough task in following this up tomorrow. But until then, congratulations. It's an absolute honor, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the It Factor Cyrus. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. I am the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. And if you're on sportswireradio.org, our internet radio station, we're going to go back to your regularly scheduled programming. If you're on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, I'll be back here twice tomorrow. I'll be here 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time with the Festus Davis, the senior official in XCW. He'll talk about his journey, his career, maybe Cold Day in Hell, maybe a comment or two about somebody else that might be a son-in-law of his, wink, wink. And then 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time to join Cyrus. But Cyrus got there first. That is none other than the Bitcoin billionaire, Chase Wakefield. I can't wait to do it again. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire.